Royalty. Royalty.
All right, good evening. I'm Huldah Dauid, for those of you who were not here last week. All the lessons, if you were not here last week, are recorded, and Apostle Lane has the links to those lessons. So you guys can catch up, review, and dive in. You have a little, I don't have one, but I don't need one. It's like, it has rectangles on it, right? It looks cool. It's because we're going to use some of the stuff we learned last week in combination with what we learned this week on that sheet. So a few things we're going to cover this week to give you an objective and a mindset of where we'll be is we're going to cover the last 11 Hebrew letters like we did last week. And then I'm going to give you the sounds of the letters. Does that make sense? They have sounds, they're not just pictures. But before we do that, we're going to go back through that culture and, oh, that's me. Through that,
we don't want the sound.
Through that culture and context portion. And we're going to review a couple more things so we continue to build that foundation of why we're even doing this in the first place. Because the why drives you toward the end. If we don't know why we're doing it, then our end game is completely off. So one of the things I was meditating on this week is why we learn language the way we do. And why, if you've taken Hebrew classes or language classes in the past and they failed you, why that happened. One of the things about language acquisition is that you do not acquire language as an adult or with an adult-like mind. Most children who are bi or trilingual learn when they're small. And the first thing they learn is not how to speak. They spend a lot of time in silence. Children do not normally master the command of language until they're about 4 to 5, where they can actually convey, explain what they mean, say in a way that you understand, where you don't have to go, okay, wait, say that again? What? Just take me to it, right?
Right.
They don't get to that age till about 4 or 5. Now you have those children. I have a 5-year-old who's been talking since she was 8 months old.
Oh my.
And her command of language at 5 right now is wonderful. I mean, she uses words that I'm like, wait, what did you just say? So, of course, there are what we call outliers, where they don't fit into the norm. But for the normal ones of us who fit into that box, we acquired language and mastered it about 5, where we can say something, person can respond back to us. So when you're learning language, especially a new language, no matter what age, you have to go through that same process. The reason why it doesn't work for a lot of people is because they want a level jump, is what I like to call it. You want to go from knowing nothing to running. You have to literally learn like a baby, then you have to crawl, and then you have to pull up on stuff, and then you begin to walk, and running comes later, right? It's the same thing with language. So when we're learning, one of the things we have to get into our mind is the culture. When a child is born, they are immediately immersed in the culture of their family. So if they grow up in a quiet home, then you'll notice that that child is normally a quiet child. How their parents respond to them is how they respond back. How they ask for things is very much indicative of how their home environment is. So if you have a child at home who throws a tantrum, guess what? They're going to throw a tantrum in public. Right? The same exact, it's because they had a culture or a way that their environment trained them. But the Hebrew language is the exact same way. You cannot command the language unless you understand the culture of the language. For instance, in the Hebrew culture, there is a way you talk to your father and there's a way you do not talk to your father. So to have words and then to misuse them will get you killed. Right? So it would have been better if you had no words than to use those words, curse your father, and die. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And the very same thing remains true for us. A lot of times when you step into settings and you have a teacher or a rabbi teaching the language, they're teaching you how to use the language, and then they give you all these rules. Now, don't say this word, and don't say this name, and don't use this, and don't use that. Why? Because they understand that if you say certain things and you misuse them, words have power. So instead of teaching you the power behind the words, they say just don't say it at all. Right? But that's not how you learn. Right? You can tell a child, no, 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 no. And then guess what the child says back to you? No, 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 no. And eventually you have to explain, this is hot. don't touch it. And you might even have to take the hand and close to the heat. You feel that? That can burn you. That makes sense. So now I understand what hot means. Telling me it's hot, but not explaining to me what hot is, leaves me confounded, confused. The same thing is true with the Hebrew language. So a lot of times we try to command the language, right, and use it when we study or when we teach and when we preach, and we handle it amiss because the people don't understand what we're doing and what we're saying. And as we try to get back to the fundamentals and the foundation of what the Father wants from us, we have to be able to understand what He's asking us to do. If we don't know what He's asking us to do, then guess what? We'll do it amiss. We'll do it wrong. And although He is merciful, right, we still have to correct when we're doing something wrong or when we're doing something amiss. It's not always wrong. It just could be, that wasn't exactly what I was asking for. We do that to our kids, right? Go get me I meant the blue one. The blue one on the left. And then they're like, I want what I want. And the Father's the same way. If we have the right to say that we want what we want the way we want it, then when He asks for our obedience, He wants it the way He wants it, because then it allows Him to freely give to us the way He wants to freely give to us. That makes sense?
That's good.
Okay. I brought my iPad this week, because last week I left my notes. Didn't tell you guys that. There's a couple of things. One of the things you'll learn about me is humility is a practice. So when you do something wrong, you fix it. All teachers should do that. I apologize to my children at home regularly because I'm not perfect. I don't do everything right. Last week, I wrote a delta on the board because I was trying to write a alpha on the board that looks just like an A. Now, I wrote an A on the board, and I could sit here and say, but it was on the board, so I'm just going to let that slide through. But no, I meant to write this, and I wrote this. This is an alpha. That's a delta. That was my mistake last week. I made two, by the way. I wrote fast, and instead of writing hallelujah, I wrote hallel. I probably put an E too. Yeah. Okay, so there you have my humanity on the board. Okay, so if you wrote down those notes, just correct that, and now it's corrected on screen as well. Can I take it off? All right, so I had to fix that, and it's a practice that I've learned over time, because a very wise woman once told me, when handling things that are above your pay grade, reserve the right to change your mind, right? Reserve the right to fix things, reserve the right to correction. If we can't be corrected, that makes us perfect, and then we should just die, because then we're just like the Father, and we've mastered all the things that we should master in life. Okay. All right. So I gave you why speaking the language comes after culture. We will learn words, and we will learn how to say certain things, and we'll learn phrases over time, but we're focusing on the culture. I'm going to tell you something else about the Hebrew language that has made it difficult over time. People have tried to learn Hebrew without learning the Bible. I'm sorry, you can't learn Hebrew without learning the Bible. The words in the Hebrew language are defined in the Bible. You get the action for the words and how they were originally meant to be expressed in the manuscript. We have, over time, taken the reality of the word and how it works away and only wanted to deal with the spirituality, but it carries with it both. It's practical for everyday life. It is the manual for living, and it tells you that on a very simple level. The Bible was actually written for children. We have made it really difficult. I shouldn't say we, maybe not us in here. Theologians and people who argue about it all the time have made it very difficult. It was written so that children could obey and understand the Father. So if it ever gets too hard for children to understand, you missed it. We all missed it. We have to go back. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. The actions in the word are for everybody. I know some people say, well, I don't speak Hebrew, I'm not a Hebrew, I'm not Jewish, I'm not a Jew. Why does that pertain to me personally? If you have a Bible, if you don't, I'll read it as well. Turn to Deuteronomy Chapter 29. I've heard it said over time, it's been said to me, I'm sure you've all heard it. The portions of the Bible are for a covenant people, right? That's for those people, that's not necessarily for me, okay? And we say that because it's our natural inclination to pick and choose which portions of something pertain to us because we don't like them. It's true. It's just like, I like red Skittles. I don't like the purple ones. So when I eat a bag of Skittles, I pick out the purple ones. I just eat the red ones. We have the tendency, it's the nature of who we are. It doesn't make anybody bad or good. We all do it. We're like, that rubs me the wrong way. That must be for somebody else. And the fact that it sometimes rubs us the wrong way means it's probably for us. Because if something doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother you. But if it does, it may be something we need to focus in on. All right, so Deuteronomy Chapter 29. And it is the practice of a person who is teaching you context to read it in context. So I can't read to you the verse I want to get to without starting at verse 1. It's not that many verses, but I have to give you verse 1 because I'm going to assume that many people have not started at verse 1 and read to the portion I'm getting to. Does that make sense? Because I could just read you the verse and you could just trust me, but don't ever just trust me. Prove all things, right?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
Because it could sound good out of context.
That is right.
Right? It could. It could.
Uh-huh.
These are the words of the covenant, which, and I'll read what I think I shared with some of you last week. I'll say Yah or YHWH instead of Lord as it reads, but it's the same thing that's in your book. Okay. These are the words of the covenant which YHWH commanded Moses to make with the children of Israel in the land of Moab, beside the covenant which he made with them in Horeb. And Moses called unto all Israel and said unto them, Ye have seen all that Yah did before your eyes in the land of Egypt, unto Pharaoh, and unto all his servants, and unto all his land. The great temptations which your eyes have seen, the signs, and those great miracles. Yet YHWH hath not given you an heart to perceive, and eyes to see, and ears to hear unto this day. And I have led you 40 years in the wilderness. Your clothes are not waxen old upon you, and your shoe is not waxen old upon your foot. You have not eaten bread, neither have you drank strong drink or wine, that ye may know that I am YHWH your Elohim. And when ye came unto this place, Sheon the king of Heshbon and Og the king of Bashan came out against us unto battle, and we smote them. And took their land and gave it for an inheritance unto the Reubenites, and to the Gadites, and to the half tribe of Manasseh. Keep therefore the words of this covenant, and do them, that ye may prosper in all that you do. Ye stand this day, all of you, before YHWH your Elohim, your captains of your tribes, your elders, and your officers, with all the men of Israel, your little ones, your wives, and the stranger that is in your camp, from the hewer of your wood unto the drawer of your water, that thou shouldest enter into covenant with YHWH the Elohim, and into this oath which YHWH the Elohim maketh with thee this day, that he may establish thee today for a people unto himself, and that he may be unto thee an Elohim, as he hath said unto thee, and as he hath sworn unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Neither you only do I make this covenant and this oath. So it gets like, oh, because we kind of tune out. That had nothing to do with me. He's talking about all this stuff. I wasn't in Egypt. I did not get out. Oh, wait, not just us. This is my part. I read all for this. Neither with you only do I make this covenant and this oath. Verse 15. But with him that standeth here with us this day, before YHWH our Elohim, or the Lord our God, and also with him that is not here with us this day. If you're the children of Abraham, and you're Abraham's seed, either by being grafted in or by blood, then that covenant pertains to you as well.
That's good.
Does that make sense? Did I butcher that, or was I in
No.
context? Okay, so understanding and acquiring the culture and the context of this language is for you too. The prayer from Moses directly from God was for you sitting here also this day. If you're intending to walk in covenant with the God of covenants, then you have to understand what the covenant is. He does not trick people into covenant. He wants you to be very, very much cognizant of what you're walking into when you get into a covenant with him. But how can we do that if we don't understand how he operates? The language gives us the opportunity to understand how his mind works so that we can put on the mind of Christ and begin to think like the Father thought and walk out the way that he wants us to walk. Make sense?
That's good.
Okay. So I gave you all those letters last week for that reason. So what we do when we define words, what do we do when the definition of words conflicts with our culture, our current culture, and the current context that we live in? What do we do? What are we supposed to do? Anybody? So what do? We are supposed to, if our culture and our context of how we understand things conflicts with the word, for us, all of us, and for me, I always remind myself that God is smarter than me.
That's right.
Much smarter than me. So if I'm confused about something, I'm confused, but he's not. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't change what he said because I'm confused about it. Exactly. So you change your behavior. I have to change the way I think about it. If that means literally crying, snotting, please let me understand what you mean by this. I will not move forward though until I understand it the way you want me to understand it.
That's good.
Not how you say, not how you say, not. We talked about this last week. If a person comes along and my father tells me go clean up your room, and then my friend comes over and says, oh, he won't mind. Let's just go play. He'll get over it. It's his house anyways. He should clean it. Right? And then you go off and you play with your friend. What are the repercussions when you get home? There's two. Depending on your age, you might get put out. Right? Somebody told you to not do what I said to do. Maybe it's time you have your own place to stay. You're old enough. That may be one. Or the other one may be punishment. There's going to be a consequence for listening to what someone else tells you to do beside what I told you to do. The Father was very, very meticulous when he gave language. He gave language in a way that was so important to him that he chose to speak creation into existence. If you go into Genesis 1 and read it through, he said, and it was, and he said, and it was, and he said, and it was, right? It's so basic and so primitive in a way that it says, and Yahweh Elohim spoke and said, light be. And it literally says, light be. And we said, and it was, like it responded. It did it because he said it. It didn't even have a chance to respond. He said it and it moved. And so he established something in the very beginning that when I speak, action is required. When I speak, action. It wasn't, he spoke and the light was like, well, do you want me to shine a little bit or a lot? Or do you want me to be a big light or a little light? Or do you want me to kind of glow and flicker? When he said it, it was so precise that light that had never existed before knew what light was supposed to be, and light is still what it was and is the same way that he spoke it in the beginning. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So creation then shows us something about obedience. Not understanding something does not negate action. Just because you don't understand why doesn't mean you don't try.
That's right. That's good.
Does that make sense? Sometimes it's in the very doing of something that you learn why you're supposed to do it. You would have never known. Oh my gosh, I can think of a billion things. But you would have never known. Yeah, your brains can probably go reminder going as well. In the beginning, I told you last week, and I'm going to share this with you. In the beginning, Yah created, I might just use that word. That might be a good thing. In the beginning, it says, God, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Everybody knows that line, right? Everybody doesn't know, though, that there is a portion of that line missing because it's not translatable in English. And so you never see it. You've heard it before, though, and you know that it's there because the brilliance of John shows that it's there. but it's not there in English. And I want to.
Can I help you step?
Okay,
Home.
I'm gonna try to pull it up here.
Okay.
For the people online, I'm going to Genesis 1:1 in Hebrew. And what I'm going to show you is how creation was spoken into existence. What did he use? And why us using the words that are the letters we're using today is so important. And why understanding each and every one before we even get into putting words together is also important. Okay, so this is Genesis 1:1. And let's see if this works like my computer works. It does. Okay. I love this one. I'm gonna make it big enough so we can all see it. There we go. Make it a little bit bigger. Can we all see that?
Mhm.
Okay. I'm gonna go over here. I don't know if that'll reach over here with this one. Yeah. All right. This word, and I'm just gonna, you can get an interlinear and read what the English says under it. That word's Bereshit. I'll read it all the way through. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashmaim va'et haaretz. In English, it would say, in beginning, created or fattened Elohim, untranslatable to you. I know what that means. I'll tell you. Et hashmaim, heavens, the heavens, va'et, and the earth. Okay. The part that's untranslated is this right here. Aleph Tav. We have Aleph Tav. You guys got the Aleph last week, right? So you know that's the first letter, right? Ox, strength, leader, first.
Yes.
Tav is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It means mark, sign, covenant. In the beginning, before he created the heavens and the earth, see it's before, Hashmaim, Va'et, Haaretz, he created words. He created the language that he would speak creation into before he even created the heavens and the earth. It had to be communicated.
Wow.
Wow, that's deep. Say that again.
So he created the language that he would speak creation into being with before he created the heavens and the earth.
Wow.
I'll give you the other part because most of you know this one. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Yah, right? God, and the Word was Yah. That's where he got it from. John got it from Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, the Word. He knew it was there because he could read Hebrew, right? So he knew. Then in the beginning, the Word. Before the creation, before the foundation of the world, before a boundary was set, before a firmament was divided, the Word was there. And so it's very, very important that we obey the Word because Yah handpicked the Word and the words he would speak before he ever started. Is that like, just like really, really, really just like let that sink in. So when I'm giving you the definition and getting you to understand what these words mean before we put them together, I'm taking you back to a place that we weren't there, but we're allowed to be privy to what was there, where every letter was defined. An aleph is this, and a bet is this, and a gimel is this. And when he spoke, because the letters were so perfectly defined, everything knew what to do. So as you're learning the letters, it should be transferring into you so that you know what to do. Everything in creation is still obedient. Oranges still produce oranges.
Yes.
Lemons still produce lemons. Cows still produce cows. Everything still does, like it produces after its own kind. Right. You say, and let the herb go, let the fruit with the seed in it go bearing seed after its own kind.
Yes.
Everything is still operating like that except for me and you.
That's right.
Everything. Okay? They're not arguing. So this season, am I an orange? Or am I
That's funny. That's true.
And when we're sitting over here, right? But we're confused. We're like, okay, am I, let me rename myself. Let me reinvent myself. I'm a part of, I'm disobedient,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm disobedient. Everything is still, if everything operated like us, the whole world would fall apart. Like literally, everything would fall apart. And so creation, scripture says that creation testifies, right, of the glory of Yah.
Yes.
And how does it do it? By being obedient.
Oh,
So then how do we testify
By
of the
being
glory of Yah?
obedient.
By being obedient. But how can we be obedient if we don't even know what he's saying? It's confused. It's literally like we talked about the Tower of Babel.
That's right.
We're confused. And so we want to get unconfused.
Yes.
Unconfused. We want to get on the right side. When you want to know a word that a Chinese person speaks, right? You don't say, let me go ask, a person that speaks French. And define what that person said in your language, right? Then they would whatever it was, they'd be like, okay, but see, in your culture that may mean that, but maybe that's not the same. What you do when you want to know what a person's saying in a different language is go to the person who lives in the culture and speaks that language.
That's right.
We have this tendency when it comes to Yah's word, where we want to go to people that don't speak his language or are not a part of his culture. I don't mean to hurt anyone's feelings, and I hope this doesn't, but in the process of study, if you take out your denominational differences and you read the scripture according to how the Father intended it to be written, you will find error depending on which denomination you read. Because everybody is going to interpret whatever they're reading
Right.
based upon their own personal bias.
That's right.
I know that's hard for people to believe.
No, it's not.
It's hard,
We are
right? Like
we're
it's
non-denominational.
difficult, right? So that is a thing, though. So if I go to a Methodist, and a Methodist has a commentary or something, it's going to be defined based upon a Methodist
right.
understanding. Their doctrine precedes Scripture,
That's right.
right?
That's
If
true.
you open up whoever was the writer, and that is sometimes a hard pill for some people to swallow. But the glory and the wonderfulness of the Father is, he said, but I've already told you, come to me. Come to me, let me define it, and then when you go back into and you pick up, I don't care what you pick up. I can use anybody's book in here. I don't care what page you turn to. If I read something and I'm like, I've read the Bible enough, that's not what that means. And I can go through verse by verse and show you, now this word means this, and this word means this. And I'm going to piece back together what the Father intended it to be from the beginning. That's my first goal for each of you. We are all going to be children in the Father's house and learn what he wants us to see in his word.
Yes.
And then when you look at it and read it, I promise you will see things you've never seen before, not because they weren't there, but because
You understand?
we look through a glass darkly,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Okay. So, to learn Hebrew, to assist us in study, is not so that we can just study. Solomon said that too much study will make you sick, right? He's like, oh, the world and everything. No. So he says, the duty of all men, right, is to love love God,
Yeah.
and to obey his commandments.
Yes.
You're not studying like, okay, so is he saying to walk or is he saying to stand still? Abraham didn't have that problem, right? He said, go, and he went.
That's right.
That's the position we want to get back to. When he says go, we go. When he says stop, we stop. But we can't do that if we don't know, okay? We're not going to intellectualize everything. Because after this, we're going to move into literally putting words together. And I'm doing all this because it gets a little weird. I'm telling you. It gets a little weird if I pull up a word and I'm like, and everybody's like, oh no, I have cognitive dissonance. She's tricking me into saying what this means, but I've been told that it doesn't mean that. No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. It gets weird at that moment.
Okay.
So we don't do because we don't do what we don't know. We do because we do know,
That's good.
right?
Yes.
The Messiah said, see, you don't know what you worship. I know what I worship, and that's why I do what I do. And he said, but one day, right, we'll get to a place where we're worship in spirit and in truth.
Yes.
We can't worship in spirit and in truth until we can take directions
Yes.
correctly. These are the directions. Creation obeyed it, we obey it. All right, let's get these last 11 letters out of the way. So last week we went through Aleph to Kaf. So last thing we ended with, you just take one and pass it back. So you're getting handouts. I'm giving you these because now I will take questions about what's on these. Last week I was not open to them because there would be a lot. But after I go through what I go through today, if you look at this, you're like, okay, what's this? What's this? In the question period, then we'll go over it. And it'll allow us to move a little quicker through the letters. Let me take one of these. If you need it back, I'll give it to you. It'll move a little quicker through the letters. So last week, we covered up to Toph, which was the palm of the hand. This week, we're going to work our way the rest of the way down. On the back side, there are vowel points. This is for reading, because we're actually going to learn how to read here. I will teach you how to read in one class session. No joke. No joke. It's not that hard once you know what things are. And that won't be this one. It'll be the next one. We'll learn how to read. You'll be able to read just like Ari, command, right? All good. But you'll learn how to read, and you'll be able to pick up a page and do like Indiana Jones and take this sheet, and you'll be able to go through and put everything where it needs to go, and you'll be able to read what's on the page. Now, will you know how to define everything that's on the page? Probably not. That's why kids go, what is this? What's a cup? That's a natural progression of language, right? As we begin to ask questions, we'll answer them. At the bottom, this is what you would consider Paleo-Hebrew or Phoenician. Okay, so I put that script there because when you come across, if you're going to get into this and nerd out like I do, when you come across inscriptions that are found on pottery or other things in Israel, it'll look like this. But I'm going to show you how it doesn't matter if you learn it like this, or like this, you'll be able to read it. Okay? Alright, so let's start with Lamed. And it's a good segue from where we came from. This is the letter Lamed. It is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What is it? The 12th? Page 12. It's the 12th letter. So we're starting on number 12. And it looks like this. And for people on this side, it's just one, but I just drew it twice. That's a Lamed. And because you have the page in front of you, I can't cheat you. It is a shepherd's staff. The 12th letter of the Hebrew language in pictograph form is a shepherd's staff. A shepherd's staff is used to control. It's used as a weapon. It can goad or poke something in the right direction, right? And it tells you to move toward a direction. That would be the abstract meaning, to go towards something. But to physically see what it does, a shepherd would have the staff and he would know how to use it. If you can think of martial arts, Hebrews were Afro-Asiatic. They lived in an area where people used martial arts. So he would have used that staff like you would see a person wield a sword or any other kind of hand-to-hand combat. Okay. Next, we have the Hebrew letter Mem. 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 And it looks like something like that. I'm going to do the opposite way. Yeah. Either way, it looks like motion, water. If you know anything, if you've been, well, depends on what part of the Jordan River you go to, but if you've been to Israel and you've seen different waters, they move, right? And the Jordan tended to flood, and it could become raging, so it could also mean chaos, because something that moves roughly can be chaotic. It can overflood its bounds. So this is the letter for water. So when you see that picture, it's always going to mean that. The definitions of these words don't change because they're attached to the culture of the people. When you move the language out of the culture, then you will poorly define the letters and then misunderstand the language. So the language is, like I said, it stays with the book, it stays with the people of the book, it stays with the Elohim of the book. That make sense? Okay. Mem. This is one of my favorites. This is noon. You guys have heard this before. You just didn't know it. Because you know Joshua, son of Nun, right? Right? They're like, it's noon. And it's a letter that looks like this. The picture will look like this. And it's seed, fish, it represents fish, like the motion of a fish, like a swimmer, activity, and life. Why I respect and love the people of this book is because it kept things so simple. The father of the book kept it so simple. The people kept it simple, but it's also so complex. This is a picture of a sprouting seed, right? If you ever had a seed and you put it on a paper towel, and it got a little wet and the little sprout comes out, right? But it also represents the seed of man. If you've ever seen the seed of a man under a microscope, it looked just like this. They didn't even need, well, I don't know if they didn't have one, but they understood things that took us years and years and years and years and years to understand and to have to define way back then. They knew that this was the seed of a man. Seed, fish, activity, life, noon. It was given to them because the definition of the words was given to them by the Father. So that's why the technology in the words still exists and still are understood today. It was outside of time. Okay? So, noon. Sonic. This one. Okay. And make sure I draw right. It looks like this. Now this is one of those ones where I told you sometimes when things are defined by people who don't live in a culture, you might look up this word, a person will say, it means just a prop or a support, but for those of you, if you live here in Madeira, if you've ever stepped on a goat head, just raise your hand. You know, even if you don't live here in Madeira, you step on a goat head. What do you do when you step on a goat head? I'm going to act out and everybody's going to laugh if I'm going to do it anyways. When you step on a goat head, you go like this. You want to see what it is that you just stepped on. You don't just step and be like, oh, no. It literally makes you turn your head,
Yes.
right? This is a picture of a thorn.
Wow.
It's a thorn, and the function of to prop or support, right, or to turn is when something gets your attention, you want to see what it is. So, if you've ever heard Paul, people like go through all this like theological stuff, like what was the thorn in Paul's foot? Whatever got his attention, whatever made him stop and turn, whatever kept his attention, right? Who cares what it was? It kept him focused on his goal. I am nothing. I can't stop or get rid of this thing. It keeps pricking me. So whatever keeps pricking me and turning my head, that is this thorn in my flesh. Right? Exactly. So to a Hebrew, I don't care what it is. What does it do? We've like for years like, what was this thorn? I can't wait till I get to heaven and ask Paul what this like seriously. And, right? And to the Hebrew it was like something got a hold of him. Right? Makes sense. So it's a thorn, a prop, and the function of a thorn, and for the Hebrews was the thorns were not tiny. You've been in Africa. Thorns are huge sometimes depending on the tree. Literally, there's a whole species made with special lips. They're called a giraffe. No, I'm just kidding. And the giraffe's lips are made the way they're made because the trees that they eat off of have really, really long thorns. And so it keeps them from getting pricked so that they can't eat from their favorite tree. And so this tree is in that place. And the thorns from these trees and these bushes in this land were taken. And they were, now this is going to be people, oh gosh. They were taken like that and they were put around the sheep. And then the master or the shepherd would lay at the door as the gate at night. So you'd corral the sheep into a thorned off area. And then the shepherd would lay at the door so the sheep can be protected. Make sense? So that's what a samik is. So when you see the pictures played out, and what I call the Brit Kadashah, it means the renewed covenant, not the new, it's renewed, same thing, right? In the renewed covenant, and you see the pictures of the Messiah, until you understand what these letters mean, you do not understand what he did. You know, like you're like, oh, a crown of thorns, that was so cruel, or no, that's a symbol. He's the shepherd, sacrificing himself for the sheep. It would be a picture that everybody would have understood. It makes sense? He took the thorns, it surrounded his head. They thought it was mockery. Every single thing he did pointed back to one of these letters. Because why? He is every single one of these letters. So when you get to the Revelation, it says, and I'll give you this just to prove that, because I'm You don't say anything without being able to prove it. It says, and I am the Alpha and the Omega, in the beginning and the end, right? I'm going to jump you back just a little bit. In Acts, remember in Acts when Paul was like, and the light arrested me, and this probably glossed over some people. It says, and then he spoke to me in the Hebrew tongue. Did anybody catch that? Did he said that? Go back and look it up.
Yeah.
That's what he said. When the master spoke to him, he spoke to him using Hebrew. So you get to Revelation, and they're like, I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Like, that doesn't make any sense because he didn't speak Greek, because he would be talking to people this. Okay, he said he's the Aleph and the Tav, right? Because if you go back to the beginning, in the beginning, God created
That's right.
the Aleph Tav. He's the Word. Every time you see Aleph Tav throughout Scripture, it's literally pointing you to the Messiah. It's used over 7,000 times. Aleph Tav, Aleph Tav, Aleph Tav. It's a direct, it points you directly to what the thing is doing. It tells you that this is a thing and it's doing in action.
Wow.
And so when you go through these letters and you go through each and every one, from Aleph to Tav, each one is going to explain to you the characteristics of the Word that was made flesh. All of the 22 put into a man to carry out the function that the Father wanted him to carry out. Okay, so everyone will have one of these. Even if I don't go through them all today, we will get to it.
That's good.
Ayin is a picture of an eye. Ayin means eye, to see, to experience. Right? Your eyes do not just see something. That has no direct action. But when you see something, it creates a picture and it gives you an experience. That's why sometimes we see things and they traumatize us, right? Because I only saw it. I didn't even participate in what it is, but it became a part of who I was. The Hebrews understood that when you saw something, it was recorded into your psyche and became a part of who you were. I, to see and experience it. Make sense?
Yeah.
Pay. Pay is a mouth. You use your mouth to talk. You use your mouth to blow or to breathe. You open it. You eat with your mouth. Your mouth is very, very powerful. Your mouth also pushes out words. The Hebrews believed that the breath of man was his life. That's why it says the power of life and death is in the tongue, but it's literally in your mouth. Your tongue pushes out breath. Literally, there are places in Scripture people breathed on people and they came back to life. But you can't have death in your body and bring somebody back to life, right? So then the vessel had to be a vessel of life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why it says that good and bad shouldn't be able to come out of the same vessel, right? Because when you put it out, you could destroy and kill, and if you're not, you don't have a governor over your mouth, it can be dangerous. One of the best example we have of that is the Mashiach. That's the Messiah. When he spoke with precision. If he misspoke, people and things would die. That's how powerful his speech was. So if he said, little maiden, get up, people got up. If he called Lazarus, and his name is actually Eleazar. If you called Eleazar Lazarus, right? And you know how many other people were named Lazarus, if you're a Bible student? Many. Just to put it like, there were many people named Eleazar. Eleazar was a Hebrew name, just like there are many people named Joshua. And there are many people. So when he called out Eleazar, because Lazarus, you're like, oh, there's only one Lazarus, right? No, there were many Eleazars. When he called out his name, he only got up. How do you call out somebody's name and only that one person get up? Like all those other Lazarus were like, That ain't me. And the one he spoke to got up. That is the command of language. It says life and death, power in how you speak. They understood that. That's why there are no curse words in the Hebrew language. They don't exist. Why? Because I don't have to make up a word to curse you. I can just curse you. I can say, and your family will never ever have a seed to sit on this throne ever again. I don't have to call you a bad name. It's just going to happen because that's what the Father said was going to happen. You see how that works? Okay. Power in the mouth. Okay. Sadi. This one is one of those ones kind of like that Matic. That's a little weird. So if you look at it, it probably doesn't look exactly like that, but it's the word Sadi, T-S-A-D-I, and it's a man on his side, and it represents desire and need. But it's not just an ordinary man on his side. It's a man crouched and hunting or waiting. It's a man who has decided to scout out its prey. Right? That's that picture. So if it was in our way, because Hebrew goes from right to left, if it was for us, it would be facing that way, and it would look like a man, like bent down, waiting for its prey. It's also, if you know a little bit of Hebrew, the word for righteousness in Hebrew is zadek. Okay? We say Melchizedek, right? Melech Zedek, or Zedek. It means the king of righteousness. Right? Melech is king, Zedek is righteousness. And righteousness is this idea of someone or somebody that waits in earnest desire or is high pursuit after the heart of the Father. That's righteousness. Like a hunter. Prey. I'm zoned in. I'm waiting. That's the only thing that matters right now. My life depends on me acquiring this thing. That's how we should be after the Father's heart.
That's right. Yes.
So, study, man on side, desire, need. This is another one of my favorites. So, it looks like this. Okay, I'm going to go there. Does that look like an egg? Alright, let's try to make my circle. There we go. It's, literally if I erased it, I did like this. You can see it even better. It's the sun on the horizon. But because the sun doesn't disappear when it goes down, it's drawn with a full picture. Because even though it looks like it goes down to you, it's just coming up somewhere else.
Right.
All right, so Kuf, is the sun on horizon or behind or beyond. There are certain things that, once again, as intellectual adult thinkers, we overthink because we always want to know about things that are beyond, right? What is it like when a person gets to what is death like? There's very few verses about it. You know why? The Hebrew was not concerned with life after death in the sense that we are. We're like, okay, if I do this, am I not gonna? They're like, oh no, I'm not gonna make it.
Thank you.
And then I'm not gonna make it. So my job is to worry about what's on this side. Get it right on this side. I don't have to worry about it on that side. On that side, it's not correctable anymore. So my focus is obedience on this side, so that he'll say, good and faithful servant, well done, on that side. Right? Sometimes we spend so much time worried about that side that we blow it on this side, and then on that side it'll be a whole other experience.
Right.
So, to the Hebrews, anything that was above my pay grade was beyond. And that is considered beyond. That's beyond the horizon. That's hidden. Yah says, the hidden things belong to me. The things I reveal are the inheritance of you and your children. Let me worry about the hidden things. Right? The hidden things, I don't know if any of you are science nerds. That is my thing. So if you know anything about quantum physics, do not turn me out. Turn me off. It's not that bad. Quantum physics have these things called quarks. And in quantum physics, it's described as like a stage. And what we see in our physical reality is all well put together. Like you see me, my eyes where it's supposed to be, my head's where it's supposed to be, and it's presentable. In the world of quirks and weirdness in quantum physics, it's like going behind the screen of a major production, where, you know, the person might have one arm in the shirt and somebody's pulling up the leg and they're trying to run out to the other side to go to the next scene. It's not how our brains can comprehend it. So it's interesting when you hear about the prophets a lot of times and the visions that they have, they're not in terms that we can really understand them. Because our brains can't comprehend the way that the Father comprehends things. So you might see a beast and it has 4 heads and it has this, and then he has to explain it. Okay, that was this, so that you can pull all those portions together. Why? Because what the Father can see and how it looks in the zeros and ones of the matrix, he has to give it to you in flesh and light spectrums and color. But things don't exist like that in your world. Don't let me mess you up. But like, for instance, I occupy this space right now in time. You can't stand in this space. I am a human being, right? But actually I am a bunch of atoms held together by an electromagnetic field. If the Most High removes the electromagnetic field, I would be like Willy Wonka when the kid goes into the television. That's pretty much the reality. You're only seeing what your brain is telling you to see.
Yeah.
That is considered beyond. You see, if we do that, how we would be like, and then we float off into the distance. He's like, how about this? Let me worry about that. Right? And when you have time, you can play with that a little bit. But let me worry about that, and you worry about being obedient.
Yes.
You worry about how I'm holding everything together by my word. I'm literally holding you together. If I just forget about you, then that little electromagnetic field that's holding up, you would just disappear into nothing. Know that. And then just leave it right there. Okay. Beyond. That's what's beyond. I'll tell you another thing about time, Hebraically. To a Hebrew, the future is behind me. It's beyond. I can't see it. Right? And the past is laid out in front of me. Because I know the past. I can look through it and I can tell you everything about the past. The future, I do not know. I don't worry about the future. I take all the information that I know about the past and I make better decisions moving forward. That's my information. What I don't know is none of my business. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Resh. This is what I told you guys. Okay, it's a man's head. And yes, something like this. Uh-oh. This may be one of my best. Yeah. Okay. It's the head of a man, and its head, right? It represents a person, because the head of a person is a person. Because the intellect, the way a person thinks and moves is here. Head, person, and first, or the chiefest thing. It also means the top or a high portion. So it's the head, resh. And the head is important because if I can control your head, I can control your whole body. We do it with our kids. I do it. When your kids like doing something, you want to move, just turn their head. They be walking, just the whole body, just like, I don't know why I just did that, but she grabbed my head. So the Father being the head of your life means that when he says, you turn, not this. So when he says, my people are a hard head and stiff-necked people, it's because when I'm turning your head isn't moving. The natural response of the head is to turn when I turn it.
Wow, that's good.
You got a strong, you have been practicing being disobedient. You see football players, right? They have like their necks are huge, right? It's like your neck has been lifting the weight of obstinance and disobedience.
Yes.
So when I turn it, it doesn't turn.
Stiff.
It doesn't. What is this? There's something wrong with you. He's like, you're heartache, you're stiff-necked, and I can't turn you. I can't direct you. That makes sense?
Yeah.
It's like. Shin. I explained to you last week, some of these letters are often translated nicely. I'm going to translate this nicely. So, shin, two things. It means two front teeth, right? They used to bite down on things. So it's to eat, to consume, to separate. And it's not always destroy in a negative, but it can be to destroy, because to separate something or to take something is to take the life out of something. It also represents two breasts because they are sustainers. Eat, consume, destroy. You literally sustain yourself as a child off of the life and nutrients of somebody else. So when Abraham understood the Father as El Shaddai, he's understanding that he is this many-breasted one. I am literally living off of him. Abraham left his family and everyone else and walked. Everything that Abraham received, he received from the Father. I am living off of and being sustained by my Creator. That's the place where we want to get to. Living off of and sustained by. In Psalm, I believe it's 19, David said, I am a weaned child. A weaned child is an interesting place for Hebrew because it's not an adult and it's not a baby. If you ever weaned a child, then you understand that a child, when they're weaned, have to come to an understanding that you no longer are living off of my body, but I'm not going anywhere. As believers, we have to get to that place. You got to get off the milk and be weaned to be able to quiet yourself when trouble happens, knowing that I am sustaining you yet and still.
Right.
I'm just feeding you differently. My kids wake up every day and act like I've never fed them before. I don't know what that is. The first thing, I'm hungry. Every day we have breakfast at the same time. Like, you don't have to tell me that. I know that when you wake up, you're hungry. Imagine we do that same thing to the Father. I'm hungry. He's like, birds. I feed them grass. I clothe it. Why do you think I'm going to let you starve? Right? Right? Does that make sense? So he's sustaining. He's giving us nutrients off of his own self. Last one. This is an interesting one because it doesn't actually mean what it looks like it means. And I'm going to try to touch on that a little bit. So it's normally drawn like this or like this. Okay. All right. And it literally is mark, sign, covenant. And it literally looks like it's literally crossed sticks. So I told you everything refers to the Father, and because it refers to the Father's language, it's going to refer to the Messiah. When you get to a very significant point in the biblical story, you're going to see the Messiah risen up on a cross beam. Now, we've given it like this, which is an interpretation. But does anybody know what mount he died on? What was it? Does anybody know? What kind of trees were there? Anybody? Anybody take a guess?
Still the S, I don't know.
Right, but what kind of trees? Anybody? Olive tree. The olive tree is a very significant tree to the Hebrew people. The oil that goes into our lamps and our menorahs that are used to fuel the light of the temple that's never supposed to go out, it represents the Ruach, is an olive tree. The olive tree is also significant because it's a tree that has a lot of branches and a lot of offshoot branches, which is representative of the Hebrew people. It's like this Abraham with all these children, but then you have like this one branch, which is from Jacob, like that's Israel. But then there's like all these other people, and he says like it's innumerable. You can't count the amount of shoots on an olive tree. I'm not even gonna try. If you live out here, you can't see it because it's something that branches out in a way that is the Father's business, right? Like sand on the sea. Olive tree. There was a crossbeam put onto an olive tree. The reason why the crucifixion was so significant is because the blood was spilled onto a tree representing the house of Israel. The whole house. Wow. Not the portion of the house. Right? And then the cross was the crossbeam was this portion where he was nailed. He was nailed onto a tree. And that's significant because when a Hebrew saw that picture of this olive tree and this crossbeam and this blood and this word and all this stuff, because remember the tree, back to the garden and the sin, and your brain's supposed to go like, that's when he says, you know who I am. You know what I've done. You know what I came for. This is the mark, the sign, and it is the new covenant in my blood. It triggered all that. That's why when you get to the day of Pentecost and you get the preachers speaking, and it said they were pricked in their hearts, because when they begin to say these words and this stuff, their brains went crazy. He was like, wait,
Whoa,
this,
that's good.
and this was this, and this was this, and this. They didn't have to teach something new. They just had to remind them of what the Father had always said was going to happen.
Yeah.
That's deep.
So when you get to the end of the alphabet, you're going to arrive at the appointed time, at the mark, at the sign, at the covenant. If you deviate from the path, you will not get to the right place. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's good.
So the last letter is cross sticks, mark, sign, covenant. I was going to give you sounds this week, but I'll let you ask questions because questions are more important than sounds, and we'll get to the sounds next week. So, questions.
Royalty.